What's up? I'm Derek. This is my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the TMEA Jazz Region Improv Etude 1. One thing that's a little bit different about this etude from our other ones is I feel like the other ones, they usually try to name them that kind of hints at what they're originally based on. This one's not. It's just called the Improv Etude 1. If you look at the audio files though, it is called the Dorian Etude. This etude is actually based on a modal jazz piece called So What by Miles Davis. So What is actually one of Miles Davis' more famous pieces. It's from his album Kind of Blue, and if you haven't heard it, you absolutely need to go listen to it, and I would suggest listening to the rest of the album as well. It's going to really give you a better perspective on this new genre that we're about to get into called modal jazz, and it's going to give you a better idea for what you can include in your improv. To give you a little bit of backstory on modal jazz, it started in the 1950s and early 1960s and was a huge contrast to what came before it, namely bebop. Bebop is characterized by a lot of chord changes happening over a short amount of time, whereas modal jazz is usually exploring a single scalar mode over a huge chorus. In this example, we've got two chords played over a 32-bar chorus. Pretty open. I know I touched on it already, but anytime you're trying to learn a new chart, you always need to be getting as many examples of it as you possibly can. So a couple people that you can look into on this modal jazz, again, Miles Davis has a huge collection of music, awesome music that you can listen to. John Coltrane, I'm sure, is another one that you know. Bill Evans, great. Charles Mingus. Boom, there we go. That's our 3 or 4 that we can listen to and explore the genre, get a better taste, and know exactly what we should be aiming for in our improv. At this point, you might be wondering, what is modal jazz? Well, it's in the title. Modal jazz is just jazz that's based on scalar modes, or you could think of it as different permutations of your major scales that you already know. A scalar mode is whenever you take the key signature from your major scale and you just start on a different note within that scale and play top to bottom. So, in your key of C, C to C is actually your major scale, but you can also know it as your Ionian mode. D to D in the key of C is another mode, E to E in the key of C, F to F, and so on. The scalar mode that you should be focusing on for this etude in particular was already kind of given to us because it was on the audio file name for it. If you remember, it was called the Dorian Etude, which is the scalar mode, the Dorian mode. To get to your Dorian mode from your major scale, it's very simple. All you do is just lower the 3rd and the 7th scale degrees. So if we're in the key of C, the 3rd note in the key of C would go from an E to an E flat. The 7th note in the key of C, which is B, would go from a B natural to a B flat. And there you are. You got your Dorian mode. Your key of C, Dorian, would be C with 2 flats, B flat and E flat. The important thing about a Dorian scale too is being able to recognize it on a lead sheet. On a lead sheet, it's going to be denoted by a minor 7th chord. So what they'll have is they will have the root note of the chord, which is what the scale is based on, right? And then they'll have either a Mi7, which means minor 7, they'll have a lowercase m7, or they'll have a -7. All of those mean minor 7. Depending on what style you're in, it could imply different chords, but since we already know that we are playing modal jazz, we know that we are focusing on the Dorian scalar mode. So at this point, I actually do want to reference my last video that I made. In my previous video, I did talk about how to structure your thinking whenever you're going into an improv solo, and I think that's really key whenever you're diving into this one. I talk about the scaffolding and how you're kind of providing yourself a structure that then you can build around in it. I think that's incredibly important in this one. We've talked about our ammunition, so to speak, for this one, which is our Dorian scale, but that's basically kind of all the notes you can play. So now it's your job to kind of limit yourself a little bit so you can have more phrasing and building into your solo. So personally, whenever I'm playing over a modal jazz tune, I have a couple of things that come to mind. The first thing that I'm thinking is these tunes sound a lot more modern. because they are. They were invented later in the jazz history side of things. Again, the 50s or 60s, that's kind of newer in the grand scheme of things. And they did have a modern sound. In addition to that, whenever I'm listening to these jazz solos, it sounds like the musicians are kind of exploring the scale. They're finding new areas of the scale. And in order to do that, they kind of limit themselves to a few notes at the very beginning, and then they kind of expand their palette as they go. With those two goals in mind, the first thing that I'm thinking of to get a more modern sound is I'm aiming for larger scalar intervals. I'm thinking of intervals of a fourth or greater. Typically within music, intervals of a third are pretty fundamental and pretty common. Even whenever you're playing things like bebop, you might have those thirds all over the place. You're resolving all the time. The intervals of a fourth and greater are going to make it so you're not really resolving. You're kind of floating in this kind of ambiguous key area, and it also does achieve that modern sound because it's something that you're not used to, but you're able to still kind of hear it in your ear. It's not so out there like something atonal. The other goal of being able to explore the scale, I think the first part of that is being able to limit yourself within that scale. So I really like to draw from pentatonic scales whenever I'm doing this. I'll choose 2 or 3 notes really to start my solo with, and then I build from that. So you'll find, the pentatonic scale is already 5 notes. We're decreasing our amount of palette of notes in our palette from 7 to 5, which is already limiting, and then picking from even fewer in that to really limit yourself so that you then focus on the rhythmic structure and you're focusing on the phrasing of your solo. You're not really worrying about the note choice. And that is incredibly important. If you listen to people like Miles Davis is one of the best to ever do it, but if you look at his solos, a lot of the times they're really not notey. He has that ability to play fast, but he chooses not to, and his phrasing is so much better for it. The last thought that I want to leave you with as far as organizing notes goes is, in addition to limiting yourself on what notes you can play, you can really play around with the structure too. One thing that I enjoy listening to that I want to get into deeper myself is triad pairs, which is whenever you have one triad. So we'll say the root triad, the minor triad, which for tenors, that would be our E minor triad, right? E, G, B. Altos, that would be B, D, F sharp. And then you take one other triad and you play back and forth between those. If you listen to the original recording of So What with Miles Davis, John Coltrane actually does incorporate this into his solo. So again, if you already have that listening example, you could have gotten there before I even said it just now. The last thing that I want to leave you guys with today is a short example. I put together one chorus of this solo with these ideas that I presented to you. You'll find that it's very simple, but the phrasing on it is amazing, I think. Oh, okay, that sounds a little bit conceited. I think the phrasing is good. And I think you'll find that the pacing of the solo is also very good using these ideas. So I encourage you to take them and run with it. You don't have to play exactly what I'm playing, but I hope that this inspires you to try something different and really dive into modal jazz as a whole and maybe get away from what you're used to regularly playing. that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Hey, good luck on auditions. I'm sure that you're gonna do great. Just listen a lot and that'll translate into your playing. If not quickly, it'll translate further down the road. Just have faith in the process, I promise, you know. Yeah, age is honestly the thing that helps musicians the most. It's having that time to let things seep in. But if you're listening, it will, I promise. Anyway, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I know last year I did an example solo on both of the improvs. If that's something you guys want to see, let me know. I'll try to get to that eventually. I've been pretty busy lately, and those do take a lot of time. I know that it might seem like these videos don't take very much time, but I'm the only one that's doing all of this, you know, so it does take a little bit of time to produce this. So I hope you enjoy. Again, like and subscribe. I always love seeing new faces and new comments and just people excited to learn. So hey, I'll see you guys around. Take it easy. I'm gonna go make another coffee.